Okay, everyone. Good afternoon now. Thank you for coming to today's workshop, Search Like a Pro. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Chris Reed, and I'm a health sciences librarian at the Health Sciences Library. I also want to introduce you to my colleague, Mei Lin Lei. So Mei Lin is going to be in the chat today. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the questions section. And she'll either answer them in text or just alert me that there's questions and we can talk about them. And keep in mind today, today's presentation, there's going to be a handout. So you're going to see that somewhere in GoTo webinar that you can click on and access that when we get to that part of the workshop. Right, so searching like a pro, what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about planning out our searches, and this involves a number of steps. So choosing what terms we're going to search with, and then we're going to talk about search strategies, including Boolean operators and the use of special characters. So this refers to things like using and or in our searches. So we're going to get into depth on that. And then we'll talk about which databases we should be looking in. And that ties into deciding where to search. So after that, we'll be doing some searching. And after we do our searches, we'll be looking at refining our searches further and how to look at results and do some filtering. And I'm going to demo some databases as well, just given if we have time. So the first thing I'd like you to do today is to think about what challenges or issues you have when you've done searches before. So at this point, October 1st, you may be searching already for papers or publications or coursework. Or if you're a new grad student, for instance, maybe you could think back to undergrad and think about some of the problems you've had before. So I'd like you to go to menti.com. You can open another window to do this, or you can even do it on your phone. And the code that it's going to ask you for is there. So menti.com, and there's the code. And I'm just going to open the search, or open Menti on my screen. So again, the code is coming up here. And you'll now be able to access this and type in some of the problems you have when searching. Great, synonym issues for sure. We're going to be talking about that a lot today. Revisiting previous searches, narrowing down articles that are relevant to my search terms. Same sources keep coming up even if the keywords are different. Okay, that one's very relatable. No access looking through different sites. Okay, we're going to be talking today about how to get access to all of our PDFs, so that's great. And sometimes it is difficult to find the most relevant information related to the specific subject, definitely. Okay, so this is all on topic of today's presentation, so hopefully we'll tackle some of these today. One more that's come in, I'm a new grad student, haven't started searching yet. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. I'm trying to get to the next slide. Oh, sorry, just one second. Okay, the next question that I have for you before we go any further is just to tell me which faculty or school your program is in. This might help me understand where we can search for you. So go ahead and answer that question. Hopefully I've included everything relevant there. I also included an other, and I know that some things might be interdisciplinary. Health sciences, I'm including like dentistry, medicine, everything under there. Lots of health sciences people so far. Yeah, so we're definitely going to talk about Pubmed today for health sciences people and medical subject headings, so that's great. Okay, I'll just hang on just a few more seconds. Okay, great. So we have one other, 8 people in health sciences. We're going to talk about Scopus. That might help people in engineering today. You have an environment, some arts, and agriculture and food sciences. So a good mix of people. Okay, so without further ado, let's start to talk about planning our searches. So why are we going to make a plan? This helps us evaluate sources we want to find. What types of information are we looking for? Where are we looking for this information? What are some things we can plan out in advance to help us do that? And that's going to help us with efficiency in searching. So we have our search all planned out. We know where to go to do this search, and that can help us prevent falling down a rabbit hole. So maybe you're used to watching YouTube videos at night or going through Wikipedia from thing to thing to thing. And all of those things could be interesting, but it may not be the most efficient or best use of time and of those resources to get at the specific information that we want. So what should a plan contain? We're going to be covering these today. We need to identify a research topic, our search terms that we're going to use, how to combine these search terms. So that's with the things like and, or, not that I was talking about earlier. We're going to talk about that further. And identifying where we're going to search for our topics. So on this next slide, the first thing I want to talk about on the right here, this is a very long example of a sentence or some sentences about a search topic. So among older men, blah, 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 there's lots of different components to this topic. And we may want to think about how we can narrow in on the key topics and searchable terms from this list of ideas that's floating around in our head for our articles, or that we've been assigned to work with in our coursework from our professors. So the first model that we're going to talk about today for identifying search terms is this PICO model. So this is really big in the health sciences, if you're a health sciences student, and it works best for clinical questions that have an intervention compared to a comparator or control group. So PICO simply stands for patient problem, I intervention, C comparator or control group, and O for measurable outcome. So if we look at this long sentence of information that we have, we can narrow this down to patient problem, older men with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the intervention we're looking at to deal with this problem, breathing exercises. What we're comparing that to is the standard care for this disease. And the measurable outcome is we want to see improvements in these symptoms. So kind of highlighting these words and isolating the key concepts can help us when we're thinking about what we're actually going to search in a database, and it helps us narrow down on some key terms. I don't know why it's not, okay. So key concepts, identifying key terms is all about identifying the most important parts of our topic. So here I have another example here. So this topic, how do social determinants of health affect emergency department use? So I'm interested in finding out some more about this, and I may go through and highlight that the key concepts that I'm going to search for are number one, social determinants of health, and number two, emergency department use. But we may want to go through and look at synonyms as well to search for these two key concepts, social determinants of health and emergency department visits. The reason we want to look at synonyms as additional search terms to use is because there's many different ways to express things in the English language, and search engines are going to respond to these different keywords. People are going to be publishing with different keywords. So we want to build a search that includes, most of our possible synonyms for what we're looking for. So for example, with social determinants of health, I may find out in the literature that people use the acronym SDOH, and then homelessness may be a big social determinant of health that's talked about a lot in the health sciences literature, or perhaps I'm interested in that one determinant, above all for the purposes of my paper. So I've included that. For emergency department visits, I may realize that that's referred to as ED visits. So I may go ahead and isolate that one as well. Okay, so at this point, I'd like you to find the handout in GoToWebinar. I'd really like it if you could think of a topic that is coming up for one of your papers or in your coursework or in your research, and we're going to use that topic to, help us build a search. So in the handout, looks like this. If you could go up top and just write out your topic. So for instance, how do social determinants of health, how are they affected by emergency room visits? Could be an example. And then if you could underline the key concepts in that topic. So I would underline in my example, social determinants of health, and I would underline emergency room visits. So I'll give you just a moment to write out a topic, either for one of your courses or it could be an example. Underline the key concepts, and keep in mind that I'm going to ask you to input these to Menti in just a few moments. So go ahead and get started on that. So when you're ready, if you could just write out your whole search topic into Menti, the code is there again. So for instance, how do social determinants of health are affected by emergency department visits? Great. Okay, great. So a few others may come in. That would be great. You can see that some people have, really big questions that have multi-key topics or components with them. Some people have just, listed one topic that they're interested in. For today, if there's something you can think about, for example, with the more basic ones like evolutionary algorithms, gene therapy, taste genetics, evaporation, etc. If you can add on a little bit to that search topic, that's going to make your workbook exercise today a bit better. But lots of great examples here as you can read. Great. So going back to the workbook now, after I've written out my topic, which you guys have all done now, the key concepts that you underline, so social determinants of health and emergency department visits, these are going to be your concepts. So this next part is we're coming up with synonyms. So I would write social determinants of health as concept number 1, and then I might write down SDOH, I might write down homelessness and leave it at that. And then concept number 2, emergency department visits, I might write down that ED visits synonym. So see if you can isolate some concepts and develop some synonyms. Google search could be useful if you're not sure. The use of an online thesaurus could be helpful, but I'll give you just a few minutes and then we're going to share some examples as well. So be prepared for that. So for this participation, when you're ready, if you could just identify one of the concepts you looked at today, put a colon, and then just list your synonyms. So for example, I could write social determinants of health, colon, SDOH, comma, homelessness. That would be great. Yeah, so these examples coming in so far are great. You may also want to think about technical terms used for things. For instance, if it's in the health sciences, you might want to think of scientific terms to express a condition, might be useful. I see in one example here, someone's using the ORs, or capitalized isolation or social isolation. We're going to talk about that with our synonyms in just a few moments. Yeah, so this is awesome. You guys have done a very good job. Second generation, yeah. Okay, so in interest of time, I'll move on, but hopefully you've got the concept of this. Okay, so now we're interested in how are we going to put all of these different synonyms and search terms and key concepts together in one single search that we're going to plug into our search engine. Um, so here I have the two big key concepts for my example. How do I combine those two things in one search? And what I'm interested in getting is articles that relate to everything in the middle part of that diagram, that the articles are all on both of those topics only. So I've mentioned that we're going to be doing this with Boolean operators. So I've included most of the ones we're going to talk about today. We're also going to talk about brackets, but I'll go through these. So using and capitalized in our searches. So we're doing this to combine two different key concepts together. I'm interested in social determinants of health, and I'm interested in ED visits. So it's going to find all the resources that use both of those terms. And you'll see in the diagram that it's narrowing my search. There's fewer things that are out there in the literature that contain both of those concepts. So I'm going to get fewer articles in my search results. Another example could be Indigenous ways of knowing, a social science topic, and Canada. If I just do Indigenous ways of knowing, I could think, well, I'm getting all of these results from Australia. They're not, they're outside of my scope. I want to include and Canada to be more specific. Next up is OR. So OR is what we're going to be using to combine all of those search synonyms that we just generated in the last exercise. So it finds resources of any of these possible acceptable terms. So could be death penalty. Another way of saying that would be acceptable is capital punishment. So I'm searching death penalty or capitalized capital punishment. And I'm going to get more articles in my results because I'm not only getting the ones tagged death penalty, I'm also getting the ones tagged capital punishment. Up next is not. Keep in mind that there are some errors that come up when using not. You could be excluding articles that just mention a word once by accident, or you could put it in the wrong order and that could cause a problem. But just for the concept of this, not is removing resources we don't want. So if we're interested in a topic like sex education, we could say sex education, not abstinence only approaches. So we're interested in getting all the literature out there on sex education, but we're not interested in seeing the results on abstinence only approach. So we don't get those articles, we get fewer articles. Moving on to the asterisk. So what this does is it truncates our search term or synonym or topic. So the best way to explain this is with the example. So there's child there, and it has an asterisk. So I'm getting in my results child, child's, children, or any other word that contains letters that follow that last letter D. So another example of this is therap, T-H-E-R-A-P. So I'm getting therapy, therapeutics, therapeutical, and any other combinations that are possible. So I'm getting more results. Next up is quotation marks. So we use this for phrase searching. I gave the example Indigenous ways of knowing. Maybe I don't want my search engine to pick up articles with the keyword knowing or the keyword Indigenous. I want it to be Indigenous ways of knowing as I've said it. So I'll put quotations around that phrase, and that will make sure that I'm only pulling up articles that are tagged exactly with that phrase, exactly as I've written it. Great, so Here, moving on, is an example of a search that I've built. So I've talked about combining things with or. So these are my synonyms. So social determinants of health, what's another way of saying that? SDOH. So I combine that with or. And then I'm also combining it with my concepts. So I have emergency department and visits, or visiting, or anything else that follows that star. And there's some other components to this as well. We talked about the phrase searching. So I don't want to get articles just on keyword health. I want it to all be on this topic. So I put quotations around it. And we talked about visits, visiting, etc. The other thing that we didn't talk about yet is these parentheses or brackets. So I'm putting these parentheses around all of my individual or statements. So social determinants of health, or SDOH, or homelessness, and then a parenthesis. So I'm doing this to keep all of that stuff together so the search engine knows that this is my list of synonyms. And it also works in a database the same way as parentheses do in math. We learned in high school, BEDMAS. So the search engine is going to locate things on that with first and with primary importance. So keep that in mind. So here I have another example for us. So ethics, or any other combination of that, morals, morality. These are my synonyms, ethics and morality, and I put them together. And my other key concept for my search is bioengineering. A synonym for that is cloning. So really what I'm interested in searching is the ethics of cloning. And this is the search that I built to do that. So going back to the worksheet now, I'd like you to write out a full search by combining some of the concepts and key ideas. And just try that out and see how it goes with those various operators. And keep in mind that we'll be sharing that in just a moment in Menti. So if you're ready to contribute these, just keep in mind that we're not looking for anything perfect. There's different ways to do it, and this is just really for practice. Right, so again, just maybe remembering the use of brackets with this evaporation one. So there may be some mistakes here. These are looking pretty good. The thing is that we're going to have the opportunity to test these out in databases today and see how they work. So maybe I'll leave kind of some critiquing for that. But it sounds like you have like definite concepts of ands and ors for sure, and combining different search terms. So that's great. So in the interest of time, I think I'm going to move on. Okay, so we've written out, our searches, and now we want to talk about where we're searching and where we're using these. Just one other thing, just someone's reminding me about, Malin is reminding me about, is we should check the spelling and ensure that we're shortening words with the asterisk there. Apparently there's some mistakes, so just remember where the asterisk might go in a word to get everything after. And then just the spelling on some things.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, I just wanted to point out to people that I think because so many of us get used to searching in Google, which will fix a lot of our spelling mistakes, but a lot of the specialized databases like say Pubmed or Scopus or anything within EBSCO are very tied to correct spelling. So just making sure that you've got that correct and that your star symbols come before like for example, just not to pick on anybody, but the different techniques, you want to put that star after the E so that you get it after, you can get the singular and the plural. So just, yeah, paying attention to that kind of thing. Thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we've written out our searches now, more or less correct. And we're talking about where these searches are going to work. So they're going to work in most databases. Like as Malin was saying, like the major ones include Pubmed, Scopus, Google Scholar, and the library search bar. So if you just go to the library's homepage, you're getting everything that's in the library's physical collection as well as everything we're subscribed to digitally. So we also may want to think about in planning our search, other than major databases, but we want to think about those as well, where we should be looking to get the databases that are going to work for us in our programs. So the spot that I'm recommending to do that is with our program's toolkit or subject guide, and getting that from the library and library homepage. So basically on the worksheet, it asks you to identify which major databases you're going to use. And then it also has a spot for others. So to locate those others, I'm going to provide you with an example of how to get to the toolkit or subject guide for your program. So this is the library's website, umanitoba.ca/libraries. So you can go to the home page here. If you select subject guides, this is going to list most of the programs that are out there. You'll notice that some of them will also have multiple guides and then more specific toolkits on specific topics. But if I'm looking for the biology guide, I'd probably click this one. And I'll give an example of what we're looking for here. So this is for, if I'm doing a master's in sociology, I would go here. They're all going to look a little bit different, so keep that in mind, but I'm looking for databases, so resources for sociology, finding articles, and what I have here she's listed the key databases that I can use in my program to find specific articles. So I may take my search and plug it into sociological abstracts to find articles, as well as using Google Scholar. So go ahead and try to identify the toolkit for your program, and also identify on the worksheets the major ones you'll be using, as well as others like sociological abstracts, etc. And after you've done that, you can go ahead and select, you can give multiple answers for this question of the major ones and others that you're going to be using.
Hi, Chris. I just have a question. Maybe you can answer it when you're in the databases about how to include specific populations. And the example given here is, for example, post-traumatic stress disorder and say the military.
Okay, sure. So definitely for populations, well, we'll do the demo when we get to the databases on things like age and like, for instance, in the health sciences, the sex of participants in a study. And then we'll also talk about other filters and then adding on keywords like military as well. So we'll go through Pubmed and Scopus today for sure. Okay, so hopefully many of you were able to locate your toolkits, and thanks for sharing the major databases that you'll search today. I think I'll move on now. Okay, so now that we've determined where we're going to search, we're going to practice putting the searches that we built into these databases. And I'm also going to, as mentioned, demonstrate some of the major databases for you as well, and point out some of the other uses in these databases. So in Pubmed, I'm also going to tell you about medical subject headings, applying filters in both Pubmed and Scopus, and then we'll talk about the snowball method in Scopus as well. So without further ado, I'll show you how to get to these databases. So if we got to our subject guide toolkit, we'll be able to see our list of key databases for our programs as well. Another way to get there is by clicking databases A through Z list. And so if I'm starting out with Pubmed today, I can go to P. I can also just search it in the search bar and click on it there. And it will ask me to, I've already logged in today, but it will ask me to log in with my NetID to get here. Okay, so we're at Pubmed. So this is one of the major databases we're looking at in health sciences. So what's in Pubmed? Pubmed isn't going to have all the PDFs for articles that we can download in it, but it's going to have the titles and abstracts of almost every article that's published in the health sciences. So this is a free resource made available by the US Government National Library of Medicine, and it's providing all the titles and abstracts for health sciences articles that are out there. So in the search bar here, this is where I would plug in that big search that we did today with ands and ors. I'll just do a small example on one topic for what I'm talking about now. And you can see on my topic search, there is so many results. There's over 200,000. And so I may want to start thinking about how I can get this number smaller so I can sort through these results and determine what's relevant for me on my topic or not. So this is where the use of filters comes into play. So on Pubmed and on Scopus and some of the other databases that will be on the left here, in Pubmed, I'll be able to slide this for the publication dates of my results. Further down the page, I also have publication date, and I can limit to the last 10 years. And this is going to do that sliding for me. And you can see I've knocked off, 100,000 plus results just by doing that. I talked about how in Pubmed, we don't have all the PDFs. So this text availability, full text, this isn't actually useful for us in Pubmed because we know that a lot of the articles that we find here aren't going to have the full text anyways. So ignore this one here. How I get to the full text of an article from Pubmed is I select one that interests me. And as you can see, I have the title and abstract and a few other things. And I'm always looking for this gold check access button. And this will take me to the library. And this will take me to where I can get a PDF for this article. So just keep that in mind. That's going to be the same in Scopus as well. But we were talking about some of these filters. So I may also be interested in the health sciences at looking at the type of article or trial or whatever it is that I'm looking for. So for example, systematic reviews are going to show results in multiple studies that point to the result, like working in all of those studies, and randomized controlled trials, that's going to be one individual study showing a result. So I may want to filter what kind of evidence I'm searching for here. And keep in mind that there's additional filters. So for instance, we were talking about the population we were searching for. We may, for heart attacks, say we're only interested in men who have heart attacks and older men who have heart attacks. And then we can add these and select them. And this will filter our results down further. Okay, so I'm going to move on and talk about mesh headings. So I mentioned in Pubmed that the National Library of Medicine is making this available. What they also do is they go through all of the articles in the health sciences and tag them about what they're about using medical subject headings. And so for heart attack, there's different ways scientifically or in medicine to express the term heart attack. And so what librarians have done is gone through all the articles about heart attacks and applied a subject heading to them on one agreeable term for heart attack. And searching by this term is going to make it easy to locate all the articles that are out there on that topic. So if I'm looking for the subject heading for heart attack, from the Pubmed homepage, I can go to Mesh Database. And I'm searching today for the Mesh heading for heart attack. And this has brought me to the results. So librarians have tagged all the articles in Pubmed with myocardial infarction as the subject heading. So I could then, over here I have a search builder. I can add that, and it's adding that phrase with quotations. And then I could search Pubmed, and I know that all of these articles are going to be relevant because they're all on the topic of heart attacks. Another thing I can do in here is if I'm interested in heart attacks and I'm also interested in drug therapy for them, and I look through the other filters, say versus surgery, I could then add that to my search builder. And this generator is adding my ands and ors and doing that kind of the brackets and comparison for me. And so now I know that all of these articles are on heart attacks drug therapy, or they're about heart attack surgery. And then I could add some additional filters there. So that is, in a nutshell, what subject headings are all about. I could also add on keywords in my search, for instance, if I wanted to narrow things down further. I might add that specific population that we were talking about in that example as a keyword as well. Okay, so that's a quick overview of Pubmed. The next database I want to look at from the databases A through Z is Scopus. Okay, so this is the homepage of Scopus. So Scopus is the world's largest databases, and it's got a lot of what's out there in the STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, math, etc. So if you're in one of those fields, finding the titles and abstracts for articles that are out there, Scopus is a powerful tool that can be used for that. So again, we're at the home page. I could type in a really long and or bracket search that I've come up with. For today, I'm just using this one topic as an example, keeping in mind that Scopus has gone and added an and between these two keywords that I've typed in. So that's what it's doing in the background for me. It's usually going to, I have this changed here to date newest. I think it usually sorts to relevance for my results of how they're displayed for me. That's another thing in Pubmed that you can change as well. Pubmed's default will be on best match. So like a Google search, it will try to come up with what it thinks is the most relevant. So my results for sheep and cloning are all here. Like Pubmed, I have all of my filters on the left. I like how it displays the count. So I know that in 2019, there are just 49 results. So I could narrow my results down further from this count of documents. Another great thing is I can say for sheeps and cloning, I could say I only want it related to these various subject areas and not related to neuroscience, chemical engineering. Scopus also has stuff in the social sciences, so keep that in mind. For Scopus, I could then select, oh, okay, I want this only to be an article. There are multiple other filters here, and then I click limit to. I'm limiting my results to my selections, and that will limit my searches. Okay, so if I've plugged in a search and Scopus has added my ands and ors, or from the home page I plugged in the search that we built today, and I get to a list of articles that start to seem relevant, I may say, okay, this article looks really good, or this article looks really good. I'm going to go in. Again, I'm looking for the check access button. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was snowballing. So one of the great things about Scopus is that underneath the title and abstract for the article, it also lists some, some mesh terms, some subjects that could be helpful for me to get keywords. But then it also lists the references works cited list for everything that the author used in the writing of this article. And the good thing about Scopus is that they're often linked. So if I find one good article, one article that's highly relevant to my topic and my search, one of the things that I can do in Scopus is, read that article and then go through the works cited list to other articles, and then click the link in Scopus and then, get to that other article. I may then, do snowballing further if there's references for this or whatnot. But this sort of searching technique is called snowballing, and it's really useful when we know that there's limited things that are out there published on our topic. Perhaps we're in a new area of research and not that much has been published. So kind of looking at the works cited list could be helpful for us. One other quick thing to know about Scopus is if we've identified one of these authors as a key contributor to the field on sheep cloning, and we want to read more created by them, we can actually click through the author names in Scopus, and we'll get to a list of the articles that they've published. So this can help our discovery as well. There's only about 5 minutes left. I did want to point out, definitely for arts and humanities, Google Scholar is a bigger one that we could use. From the library homepage, if you click Google Scholar and get to Google Scholar this way, the advantage of using Google Scholar through the library homepage is I'm getting the check library access button for me there. And this is how I can get to the full PDF of this article. So definitely go through and try out your searches in the major databases, perhaps on your own time now as we're nearing the end of this presentation. But there are just a few other questions, so I'll just talk about what those were. So what are potentially useful words coming up in the search? Perhaps we notice a mesh heading or a different vocabulary word that's coming up that we could add as an or onto our search. We could list those. We could identify mesh headings. I talked about in Scopus the different keywords and headings that are listed underneath the abstract of each individual article. We could use those to search. And then also in Scopus, which authors are turning up repeatedly. Maybe we want to have a look at those authors' work more in depth. So there's about 5 minutes left now. Sorry that the ending of that was a bit rushed, but let us know if you have any questions.